Something very strange just happened and almost nobody noticed. Friday, silver crashes 37%, the biggest one-day massacre in modern history. Today, Tuesday, the U.S. State Department announces an emergency meeting. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 50 nations are gathering at the Department of State. The topic, critical minerals and supply chains, and silver is on that list. Let me show you what they're not telling you. Because the timing of this meeting is not a coincidence, and when you see who's attending, who's speaking, and what they're really discussing, you'll understand why Friday's crash wasn't random. In the next 11 minutes, I'm going to show you why 50 nations are gathering 24 hours from now, why they're calling it a matter of national security, and what this means for anyone holding silver. Subscribe right now because what's about to happen tomorrow will change everything. Look, everyone is distracted right now. They're looking left, they're looking right. Meanwhile, Uncle Sam just walked right down the middle and dropped a bombshell that proves Friday wasn't just bad luck, it was a setup. Before we get angry, smash that like button to help the algorithm find other confused investors. Send this to anyone you know who holds silver. They're going to need to see this before tomorrow's meeting. Okay, let me show you the receipt. This just dropped on the State Department website. Most people missed it. On February 4th, 2026, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will host the inaugural Critical Minerals Ministerial at the Department of State. Read that again, inaugural. This is the first time they're doing this. The United States will welcome delegations from over 50 nations to advance collective efforts to strengthen and diversify critical mineral supply chains. 50 nations. Not 5, not 10, 50. This historic gathering will create momentum for collaboration to secure these critical components, vital to technological innovation, economic strength, and national security. 3 words: national security. Implications. When the government says national security, they're not talking about iPhone production. They're talking about strategic resources. Resources so critical that America cannot function without them. And who's speaking? Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Assistant to the President for Global Supply Chains, Undersecretary for Economic Affairs. This is not a conference. This is not a routine meeting. The second highest elected official in America is speaking. The Secretary of State is hosting. The supply chain czar is there tomorrow. 9 a.m. Washington, D.C. Now let me show you why this matters for silver. What is a critical mineral? According to the U.S. Geological Survey, critical minerals are resources. 1, essential to economic or national security. 2, supply chain vulnerable to disruption. 3, no easy substitutes available. Silver checks every box. Box 1, essential to national security. Military electronics require silver. Defense systems use silver conductors, missile guidance systems, naval applications, satellite components. Box 2, supply chain vulnerable. 60 to 70% of global silver refining. China. Top producers, Mexico, Peru, China. U.S. imports 66% of silver needs. One country controls processing. Box 3, no substitutes. Best electrical conductor of all metals. Required for solar panels. No alternative works as well. 5G technology requires silver, medical equipment, electric vehicle contacts. Silver is not optional, it's strategic. Now look at the timeline. January the 2nd to 26. Institutions build massive short positions, as I showed in my last video. January 29th, silver hits $121.30, all-time high. January 30th, Friday. Silver crashes 37% to $76. Manipulation accusations everywhere. February 2nd, Monday. State Department announces minerals meeting. February 4th, tomorrow. 50 nations convene. Friday to Tuesday equals 4 days. You're telling me that within 4 days of the biggest silver crash in history, the U.S. calls an emergency meeting on critical minerals with 50 countries? This wasn't planned last week. This meeting has been scheduled for weeks, possibly months, which means they knew silver was going to crash. Because you don't organize a 50-nation ministerial in 4 days. You organize it months in advance, which means when they scheduled this meeting in December or January, they already knew what was coming. The official line? Strengthen and diversify supply chains. Let me translate what that actually means. Strengthen supply chains equals secure more supply. Translation, we need more silver, a lot more, urgently. Why? Because industrial demand is exploding, solar installations accelerating, electric vehicle production scaling, 5G infrastructure build-out, military modernization programs. Diversify supply chains equals reduce China dependence. Translation, we can't have 60 to 70% of silver refining controlled by China. Why now? Because geopolitical tensions are escalating. Taiwan, South China Sea, trade wars. If China cuts off silver supply, like they did with rare earths, U.S. technology and defense industries have a 6 to 8 week buffer. Then everything stops. Tomorrow's meeting is about preventing that scenario. Here's what makes this even more interesting. China is likely not on the guest list. How do I know? Because the language matches the Minerals Security Partnership, the NATO of mining that the US launched to specifically bypass China. The meeting is titled Strengthen and Diversify. That's diplomatic language for anything but China, ABC. What this means? The US is organizing 50 nations to 1. Source silver from non-China suppliers. 2. Build refining capacity in friendly nations like Mexico and Poland. 3. Create strategic reserves that Beijing can't touch. 4. Establish long-term purchase agreements with Western miners. And they're doing it right after the price crashed 37%. Think about that. If you're going to secure multi-year silver supply agreements with the Friendly Shoring Alliance, when do you want to do it? When silver is at $121 or when it's at $76? Now, Friday's crash makes perfect sense. Scenario: December 2025, U.S. schedules Critical Minerals Ministerial for February 4th. Invites 50 nations. Agenda: secure long-term supply agreements for strategic resources, including silver. January 2026, silver rallies from $71 to $121, 70% gain in 4 weeks. Problem: if the meeting happens with silver at $121, every supply agreement, every reserve purchase, every long-term contract gets negotiated at inflated prices. Solution: crash the price before the meeting. January 30th. Margin hikes, coordinated selling, liquidations, silver crashes to $76. February 4th, meeting happens. 50 nations negotiate supply agreements at $76 instead of $121, savings on a 10-year, 1 billion ounce strategic agreement at $121 per ounce, $121 billion. At $76 per ounce, $76 billion. Savings, $45 billion. Now, Friday's crash doesn't look like market forces. It looks like preparation. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, watch for these signals. 1. Language used in opening remarks. If they mention supply security equals bullish long-term. If they mention price stability equals they want control. If they mention strategic reserves equals massive buying coming. 2. Which countries are most engaged? Major producers, Mexico, Peru, Australia, equals supply side. Major consumers, Japan, Germany, India, equals demand side. If both sides are aggressive, equals serious shortage concerns. 3. Any announcements of bilateral agreements, country-to-country deals, reserve stockpiling programs, refining capacity investments, price stabilization mechanisms. 4. What they don't say. If they avoid mentioning China, equals confirmed it's about China. If they avoid mentioning recent price volatility, equals they caused it. If they avoid mentioning physical shortages, equals they're acknowledging them. If you're holding silver, physical silver, they just confirmed it's strategic, national security, no substitutes. Hold. Paper silver, futures, ETFs. They just demonstrated paper prices can be manipulated. Friday proved it. Consider converting to physical. Mining stocks. If 50 nations are about to sign long-term supply agreements, mining companies just got guaranteed revenue streams. If you sold Friday during the crash, I'm sorry. You sold at exactly the moment when 50 nations were preparing to declare silver a strategic national security priority. If you're thinking about buying, tomorrow's meeting either confirms the shortage and prices recover, or reveals coordination to suppress prices further. Wait for the meeting's outcome. This is not about silver. This is about the new Cold War. Western alliance versus China. The weapon is not missiles, it's supply chains. China spent 30 years positioning itself as the processor of critical minerals: silver, rare earths, lithium, cobalt, gallium. The US just realized that's a strategic vulnerability. Tomorrow's meeting is America organizing the Western world to build parallel supply chains. And they're doing it right after crashing silver prices to negotiable levels. This is geopolitical chess. Silver is just one piece on the board. But it's a piece both sides desperately need. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, the meeting begins. It's being live streamed on the State Department website and YouTube. I'll be watching, taking notes, analyzing the language, looking for the signals. Then tomorrow night, I'm posting a breakdown video. What actually happened at the Critical Minerals meeting and what it means for silver. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Because whatever they announce tomorrow will either confirm Friday's crash was orchestrated or prove it was just the beginning. 50 nations, tomorrow. Critical Minerals, national security, 4 days after the biggest silver crash in history. That's not a coincidence. That's a timeline. Share this with someone who thinks Friday was just a market correction. Show them what's happening tomorrow. Let them connect the dots. Drop a comment. Are you watching the meeting tomorrow? What do you think they're really planning? Friday was phase 1, tomorrow is phase 2. And now you know what's coming. I'll see you in the next one.